Now we get to take a look at Hurricane Harvey from the statewide look. We visited earlier with EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt here on the program, and joining us right now on the show, Texas Railroad Commissioner Ryan Sitton. Commissioner Sitton, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm good, Chad. Thanks for having me. It's always good to be with you.
Well, it's great to have you on the show, and I guess first I want to start off. How are you and your family? I know y'all are from the Houston area, so how's everybody doing?
We're good, Chad. We've been blessed. Our house is well above the flood levels here. We've got power. Up until last night, we had internet access. So we are, not only are we doing well, but we've been so blessed that we're looking at how we can take in some families who've been displaced, so that those who've been less fortunate have a place to call home for a little while.
Good.
Just so you know, we're down in Friendswood, so we are absolutely in the heart of it. We think over a third of the homes in our town have been flooded.
Wow. One of the things that we've been doing today is taking a look on different levels of how this is going to impact the state of Texas moving forward. Earlier, I had on EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt. He was talking about the EPA's response on this. When it comes to the Railroad Commission, what is y'all's response? What happens in the aftermath as far as the Railroad Commission goes?
It's a great question, Chad, because as you know, a lot of your listeners don't know what we do. It's nothing to do with trains. It's going to be, we regulate all the oil and gas activity and coal mining in the state of Texas. The big focus for us will be down in the Eagle Ford area, and then really across the entire Gulf Coast. Any oil and gas wells, any disposal wells, anywhere that loss of containment due to either flooding or wind damage could have hydrocarbon getting out. That's what we're focused on. Now, I can tell you, we've been monitoring reports very closely. We've had a handful of minor incidents, but we're very optimistic. As of right now, we've had no major incidents reported. So we have focused our efforts more broadly on how can we support the other areas of the state, because it looks like, from an oil and gas production perspective, things are in pretty good shape.
Well, I know that about 24% of the refining capacity is offline right now. How does that impact the state of Texas, and how long do we have any expectation right now how long that 24% is going to be offline?
Well, let me. I actually think, Chad, that number's probably low. So you'll hear numbers like 2.2 million barrels a day of refining capacity are offline, which Texas refines around 6 million barrels a day, a little over that. So that would be about a third. I think it's probably closer to 3 million barrels that we are at right now. Just when I hear more kind of anecdotal things about which refineries are at reduced rates, which ones don't have intermittent storage capacity, that's nearly half of Texas refining capacity, which is around, that's getting up to about 20% of the nation's refining capacity, or 15% of the nation's refining capacity, or 3% of the world's refining capacity. So it's big numbers, and it's absolutely going to have an impact around the globe when it comes to refined product prices, gasoline, diesel, that sort of thing.
And do we have any idea how long that's going to stay in place? I'll tell you, I was in Dallas visiting my family over the weekend, and of course, as Hurricane Harvey came on shore, gas prices started going up. They've come up here in Lubbock as well. Are we going to see gas prices continue to go up, and do we know how long?
Yeah, it's a great question too, Chad. I'm afraid they are going to continue to go up. I will tell you that. So I think, as you know, and your listener may remember, I'm actually an engineer by background and have worked in a lot of these refineries. And I can tell you that the process of shutting them down is a long, complicated process. The process of starting them up is even longer and more complicated. I think some of these big plants, like the ExxonMobil Baytown plant, the Shell Deer Park plant, a couple of the ones in Corpus Christi, they may take weeks to get started up and get back to full capacity. I mean, 6-8 weeks even, assuming that there's no catastrophic incidents that occurred, which could push some of those plants out even further. Yeah. So my prediction, if I could make one, and it's admittedly a little out over my skis right now because we're still waiting to get full data, I think we're going to see a pretty decent bump in prices at the pump for a while. However, because there's been excess crude and excess refined product on the market for a while, I don't think it's going to have a sustained impact. I think when you look 2-3 months down the road, those prices will hopefully come back down.
We're visiting with Railroad Commissioner Ryan Sitton here on the program. Let's talk about after the water recedes and after not only is everyone able to move around again, but you can make it to those refineries. What are people? What's everyone going to look for to make sure there's no damage? I imagine this is a tough process. It's a long process to go through, right? To make sure there's no damage to every single little area.
That's right. And now, Chad, you've really hosed yourself because you're going to ignite the dork in me, and I'm going to start going through refining processes here. So you got to be careful. I'll give you a high level version. Let's say a big refinery has something. I'm not exaggerating, like 10,000 pieces of equipment.
Yeah.
So that's a piece of pipe, a pressure vessel, a pump, a heat exchanger. And they will have people all over that plant looking at every single piece of equipment to make sure that the flanges are still bolted up, that there's not any rust or any something that ran into the piece of equipment. They'll pressure test them. They'll fill them up with water and make sure that they hold pressure before they put any dangerous fluids in there. As they start them up, they will purge them with something like steam first, and then they'll finally start putting in refined products. And they'll do that throughout the entire whatever it is, 50 different units and 10, 20,000 pieces of equipment that they have to work with. So it is a very detailed process of checking every piece of equipment. And a lot of times, if I could for a second get philosophical on you, people who aren't in the business kind of think of these big companies and these big refineries as these sort of faceless machines that just pump out liquid. You got to think about the literally thousands of skilled workers that are going to go back into these plants and be working hard to bring these plants back online so that guys like you and me have gasoline to put in our cars. And these guys are talented, they're good at their jobs, and we depend on them a lot just to make the pun intended, keep the trains running on time.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking about the oil and gas, I guess you could say, fallout from Hurricane Harvey and Tropical Storm Harvey. And so we're looking at maybe months here as far as gas prices going, or weeks for gas prices going up. And after maybe a couple of months, we'll see those prices come back down. Are you hearing anything about offshore drilling? If there were any leaks, or if everybody was able to shut everything down in enough time to where we kind of got through at least the offshore part relatively unscathed.
From a leak perspective, we've heard no reports of any leakage or any sort of loss of containment. Keep in mind that around 25% of the offshore capacity was shut in. So people shut down production operations, rigs, offshore, just to be careful. So I think that's around 500,000 barrels, not quite that much, 400,000 barrels of crude oil production was taken offline. And when you couple that with the shutdowns in the Eagle Ford area, that's somewhere probably north of 800,000, maybe 1 million barrels a day of crude capacity that was shut down in anticipation of the storm hitting, just to be cautious. So right now, as I said, no loss of containment issues, but that's going to help contribute to end product price increases.
All right, Commissioner Sitton, I appreciate your time today. Is there anything else that people need to be following in the aftermath of the storm that hit that your office will be following?
From an office perspective, no. I think you've asked the questions. I'll tell you one thing on a personal level, Chad, and I have to, here we are. I'm down in the middle of it. My family, we've gone out every day trying to find people we can help and haven't been able to do huge things, but you see so much Texans pulling together to help Texans. I mean, it'll bring a tear to your eye watching people that are leaving their own homes, getting their private boats, going to neighborhoods to pull their neighbors, their community out of homes and taking to shelters, people sharing their own food and their own water. I tell you what, if the silver lining on all this is it's just so inspiring to live where we live. It's a very special place.
Well, it's a great statement about Texas. It's a great statement because you see all these other Americans who are coming into Texas to try and help out, whether they're from Louisiana, New York, just all over. And we both watch the news. We know what the some in the news media would have us believe about this country that we're on the brink of a civil war and that, all hell is breaking loose. And then you look and see what's going on down in Houston with everybody coming together. That's the real statement about this country and about this state.
Yes, sir. It sure is. And you said it very well.
Commissioner Sitton, appreciate your time today, and we'll visit with you in the cleanup process of everything. We'll visit with you down the road.
Thanks, Chad. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. That's Commissioner Ryan Sitton, Texas Railroad Commissioner.